Welcome, everybody, to another episode of People Love Clapping, how business groups and communities grow. My name is Vik Rajan. I am the co-founder of Video Socials, which is a community as well as a combination with our video posting social media automation app. And just about every week, I go live on LinkedIn Fridays at 1 p.m. Eastern, as well as on my Facebook profile. And then you can catch this and other episodes on our YouTube channel for Video Socials, and then listen to it on your favorite podcast app, be it Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts. I personally use Stitcher to listen to other podcasts as well. So feel free to subscribe and download and do all that fun stuff. I enjoy chatting with different business group leaders, essentially to steal ideas from them of what I can do to improve video socials for our members. We've got over 120 lawyers, accountants, coaches, and consultants in about a dozen states who get their video blogs recorded together, fun and done. And I like talking to other leaders of peer groups, masterminds, networking groups, professional associations, and see how they bring people together and help maybe promote them and highlight them to my circle of influence, including our Video Socials members. Today, I've known Rajiv for many, many years.
Yeah,
But
3 to 4 years at
we're
least.
excited about Dynamite. So I'm looking forward to getting to know the Dynamite Networking Group and for you to share your story. Before we even dive deeply into Dynamite, I'd love for you to share maybe a quick example or a story rather of how maybe a group or a community doesn't need to be a business community, but how some kind of community that's impacted you, perhaps even growing up, and how did this concept of getting into the world of business groups even get started? Has there been any type of a community or group that has helped you either growing up or a young adult, anything like that?
Um, as a young adult, actually, I was never business focused,
Yeah.
so not really.
Was
I
it
would
more of a
say,
personal community? Was there any other kind of groups of
yeah,
people that helped?
I guess, I would probably think my church group.
Yeah,
That would be the earliest group that I could think of that kind of came together, that had
sure.
that social element, it
Right.
had that support element,
Yeah,
it had uh, like-minded people coming together to try to do something, whether it was for a committee or
right.
whether it was for an auction or a
Sure.
fundraising event or something like that. That I would think is the earliest that I can think of, and this was way back when I was in college, of doing anything with a group. And I guess, and that's a great question, Vikram, that's probably where this whole thing about working with people started, because I saw myself interacting with people. The interaction was very seamless. And as they say, we got along. And that was perhaps one of the building blocks for future collaboration with people, which did happen, of course, at work. And also fast forward many years, many decades to today, where I work with several groups in various capacities, including the networking group that I founded a couple of years ago as well.
And what started that? Like, how and why did you start Dynamite? And I
Yeah,
know,
that's
we know each other from other networking groups. So,
correct.
yeah, why did you feel there was a void or a necessity to even start like yet
Yeah,
another one? And then, more importantly, how is it different? And what did you find as kind of something that you wanted to bring to the world?
yeah. So that's a great question, Vikram. This story starts, I guess, right here in New York City. So New York City is supposed to be New York City, the Big Apple. All roads lead to New York, like just like all roads lead to Rome in yesteryear. So New York City is supposed to be the apple of the eye of everyone. Everyone aspires to be here, and yes, it absolutely is. As a New Yorker, it is one of the best cities that I've had the privilege of living in and enjoying and experiencing as well. That being said, unfortunately, networking still sucked. And I was wondering, we're in New York City. This is like the greatest city in the world. Why is it that when it comes to networking, business networking, it's still, for the most part, a very lackluster experience. It's still uh, because, let's say, the prominence of various other very established organized networking groups, it seems very cold and transactional.
Hmm.
And I was like, why? Why does it still suck? And in the immortal words of Gandhi, which says, be the change you want to see in the world,
Sure.
rather than waiting for someone to create this near utopian vision for networking, I said, hey, let me take a stab at it. And that's how Dynamite was formed. So, Dynamite, and just to give you some context, when it
Yep.
comes to networking, there are broadly two types, broadly. And I'm sure I might be making some generalizations here, but broadly. So, there's one type which is very, very focused on referrals, and that's all they care about. And that seems to be what most people cringe at, because it's very cold, it's very transactional. It's just sometimes tends to be me, buy from me, and that's it. That's on the one end. And then on the other end, you have other groups that tend to be more relationship oriented. That's all about the touch, the touchy feely, fluffy, fuzzy, all that stuff. They're very relationship focused, and they're not focused on referrals at all. It's not a focus. Their let's say motto or mantra is get to know the people first, and after that something will happen. But they're very clear. It's all only relationship focused. Not so there's no like focus on referrals. It's maybe not even secondary, not even third. It's not a focus. So Dynamite, on the other hand, is kind of like in that midpoint where we're super focused on referrals because we want to create tangible value for our members, but we do it in a very humanistic way. So our focus is like our one of our descriptors says we're about igniting authentic human connection, where we meet the human before the business professional in that order. So that's how we differ fundamentally from other networking experiences. But then when you get into specifics, like, okay, Rajiv, that's all well and good, but then how are you different? Everyone says that. So you might have a question like that. Just to preempt that and to answer that.
You're making it easy. Go on.
So to preempting that question, let's say whether you look at the groups on the left or the groups on the right, and by that I mean I don't mean to make
Referral
any.
versus relationship.
Yes, I don't mean to make a political statement
Sure.
or anything when I say left and right, just directionally.
You got two
Uh,
hands.
yes, thank you. And so when you look at both of these groups, typically there's just one speaking round in each of these meetings. You speak once for about 20 to 30 seconds, sometimes 45 seconds. If the meeting is a little bit smaller, fewer people in the room, and then that's it. Then you like pretty much be quiet for the entire duration of the meeting.
Right.
At our networking group, what happens, we have 4 to 5 distinct rounds of speaking in that
Okay.
round robin style. So that's like one of the many differences. Other differences are those, whether it's on the left or the right, those other groups meet like super early in the morning, like at the crack of dawn, 6 a.m., 5 a.m., 5:30, 6:45, whatever. And yes, I can understand the logic of doing that. You're
Yeah.
trying to have a meeting before your work day starts, and that
Sure.
makes sense. But then there are some people that don't want to wake up that early for a business meeting. They're like, they want to enjoy their last dream, or they want to.
Are you in that category? You like to sleep in?
Yeah, I'm not a morning person, and I don't like waking up early in the morning. Right now, unfortunately, I'm very begrudgingly becoming a morning person for health reasons, but left to my own devices, yeah, that's not what I naturally kind of move or gravitate towards. So another difference is that we meet at 10 a.m. Uh,
Right.
that's like you're at 10 a.m. You're expected to be wide awake, and if not, well, perhaps you need to speak to your doctor about that. Um, uh, that's like one of the other reasons. The other ways that we're different is that each meeting is kind of packed into an hour, so it's not more than an hour. We're very focused on. Also, there's no difference between if you're a guest or if you're a member. Some of these groups kind of make it very clear if you're a guest, you're like this, untouchable, you're going to be treated different. You get to speak only after the members speak. Till then, just zip it. I mean, I'm exaggerating for the purpose of dramatization and humor, but there is a very distinct experience that you have as a member in some of the other groups, and as a guest you kind of have to wait your turn until all the members are done and then you speak. At our experience, there's no difference between a member or a guest. It's the exact same experience between whether you're a member or a guest, and that gives guess the idea of the vibe of what we're trying to project. And people often say that the feeling that they get when they walk into the room, either whether that be previously when we met in person or now when we meet virtually, it's that kind of group of people that hang together at the end of the bar just as the bar is closing. And of course, I'm not advocating drinking or consumption of alcohol, just saying that. But the kind of vibe of these people, kind of those really good friends huddled together, having a good time, chit chatting. And that's the kind of vibe that we have, that when people see that, they're like, wow, this is definitely different. And yeah, and
So then I can see it, a lot of people like that. They like drinking and they like being at the end of the bar and they like hanging out with people. I have no problem with all three. Who do you find that Dynamite is not for? Like, who is it definitely not a good fit for, either because of their profession or where they are in the corporate structure, or by the psychology and by the psychographics, as we call it in marketing, right? Who is it not a good vibe and fit for?
yeah, so Dynamite is best suited for entrepreneurs and people with a business development or sales type role or function. Broadly, I think that's true for anyone, whether they're in corporate, entrepreneur, startup, nonprofit, like it doesn't matter, or
Yeah.
government. If they have that business development or sales role, it's a fit, broadly speaking. Now, if you want to narrow it down, it's also not a fit for people that are just in it to get something. So I call them takers. So our group is focused on receiving givers and excluding takers, because takers suck the energy out of the room, and they're the reason why people cringe when they think, hey, you want to go to a networking event, and they think the mind flashes back to that time when they felt trapped in a conversation and couldn't leave because the person kept talking on and on and on for 5 minutes straight, and they couldn't get a word in edgeways, and they just felt trapped and held hostage by this person that just wanted to sell to them and explain why his or her service was amazing, best thing since sliced bread, etc. So it's not suited for people that just want to take from the group. It's best for people that have that slightly altruistic view, orientation towards life, where they have this abundance mindset. They feel that there's enough for everyone, and then they have a generous spirit. So our group is best suited for people like that.
You talked a little bit. That's great. And you talked a good amount about the interaction, the multiple rounds of how your meeting is structured, and it's only 1 hour, which that itself is unique in the networking world. Very often it's 2 hours, if not more. Um, how large or how small, purposely, are each one of the meetings? And I can only assume that you went virtual. Is it by Zoom, or is it always going to be by Zoom? What kind of is it in person now, or having plans? So talk to us of the interaction among members within the meeting, outside of the meeting. How is that facilitated?
Yeah, that's a great question, Vikram. And you've like literally opened like the truckload of questions. I'll
Yeah,
try and
because
answer them.
there are more coming. Go
Yeah,
on.
I know, I know. So I'll try and answer them as quickly and succinctly as I possibly can. As far as the like one of your questions was, is it in person? Yes, we started out in person originally, and then when the pandemic happened, we transitioned to Zoom virtually. And as a consequence of that, we have now grown tremendously. We previously were New York City only focused. We met at various places, like we met at the USA Today office, we met at Park Avenue and a few other places near the Penn Station area. And then when we transitioned to Zoom, we were then available to people outside of New York and in other countries as well. As of now, we have two chapters with another chapter in the works. We have an East Coast chapter and a West Coast chapter. East Coast chapter meets at 10 a.m. on Tuesdays. West Coast meets at 1 p.m. on Tuesdays. These are times in Eastern Standard Time. So if you translate to Pacific, that still makes it 10 a.m. Pacific. So we're still maintaining our 10 a.m. start time. So it still is a, let's say, friendly time for people on the West Coast as well. So that's like one part of it. The second is that not only do have we grown by having two chapters, we've attracted members from all over the country and all over the world. We have members in India, we have members in the UK, we have members from Canada, the US, of course, coast to coast, East Coast, West Coast. So from that standpoint, it's allowed for people that previously did not have access to an experience like this now to have access. To answer the question after that, are we returning to in person? I would say partially, and I'll explain. We're going returning to in person in the sense that we previously had a lot of mixers and parties and fashion shows in the evening. Whenever things open back up and fashion shows begin again, sure, we'll continue to do that. And we'll do that both in New York as well as in San Francisco. Those are our two main bases. But as far as the core networking, that will remain virtual.
Okay.
Because there's a lot of logic to meeting that way. You don't have to travel anywhere. You don't have to bother about having coffee. You can just brew whatever you want or get it delivered from Dunkin' or Starbucks or whatever, and you can enjoy whatever you want. You don't have to be forced to have whatever coffee the venue offers, etc. So there are some, reasons that make it better to meet virtually. And we intend to stay virtual, and that's how we're going to be growing as well.
So,
Yeah.
how do you make an effective meeting? Sounds like it's very large. So, how do
Oh
you
yeah.
limit the number of
Yeah.
people? And
Yeah. Yeah.
talk to us about a meeting agenda of how does it happen within the hour?
Yeah. So, yeah, Vikram. So you had asked many questions, and one of the questions I kind of slipped my mind a little bit. So, the history is that when we originally started, we had at our first meeting we had 55 people. We met in person. We were all packed into a super small conference room. It was extremely loud, and it was
Yeah.
not a great experience. The next meeting, number two, same conference room, 65 people. Yes, we were all amped that there were so many people. It was standing room only, and wow, that's brag worthy and everything. But it was not a good networking experience because even with the round robin style, the meeting took too long.
Right.
And when the meeting ended and we had open networking, it was just too loud. You just couldn't. It was just kind of like a nightclub where you had to be pressed up against the person to kind of really hear or discern what it is that they were trying to say. And again, it's kind of uncomfortable. So we decided after those experiences that we want to cap the attendance to like 25 people. 25 people makes it an even paced meeting. You have like a higher quality of interaction without compromising the quality and experience of the meeting. And when it comes to open networking, and this was in person, the volume levels in the room weren't that crazy. And this same protocol or configuration followed when we moved virtually. It's the same thing where we cap it out at about 25 people. Sometimes it's a little bit more, but typically 25 is the sweet spot. If it's under 25, no problem. Slightly over, that's also no problem. But the meetings are like pretty fast paced, and despite our 5 rounds of speaking, it's still packed and contained in within that hour. And we didn't get to this stage initially. We tried and experimented and pivoted, spoke to various advisors and people in the space that helped groups like us grow and asked us some very hard questions, and based on that, we introspected, soul searched a little bit, and constantly kept pivoting and iterating and kind of perfecting the model slightly till we kind of got it right to the point where we're at. And one of the other ways that we're also different is that at the end of the meeting, we kind of create like a minutes of the meeting summary, which then gets published on our website as well. Previously, we would email it to people, but now we publish it on our website. So when you go to the website, you'll see a video of the meeting. You'll see the chat summary. So you'll kind of relive some parts of that experience, as well as see everyone's contact information, their ask, their give, their
Is
what
that
do they do, etc.
is that open to members only, or do you follow the guests are treated as members philosophy even on the
Yeah,
website?
yeah, it's open to everyone.
What is the web address?
DynamiteNetworking.com.
Okay, keep it simple.
Yeah,
So, what is that 1 hour agenda like, where you're having about 25 people interact in 4 or 5 rounds? Doing math there, that's about easily 5 minutes per person. But I'm sure you have like an opening and a closing. What is that
yeah,
agenda like?
right. So typically, it's about we start with an icebreaker. Like I said, we meet the human before the business professional in that order. So the icebreaker allows us to meet the human. We kind of get to know a little bit about them personally. Icebreaker could be something like, what's your favorite season of the year? And then we get funny responses. Like one of our members said, well, I love summer because in summer, guess what? You don't have to shovel sunshine out of your driveway. And that's like brilliant, right? So those are the kind of insights and personality that kind of shines through when you have that kind of question, which otherwise would not have the opportunity of surfacing if it was just about, hey, what do you do? So we start with the icebreaker, then round two is what do you do and why you love it. Round three is the ask. Round four is testimonials, referrals, announcements, and round five is open networking. So that's kind of like how we do it.
Do you
Each
use
round
a
is
breakout?
timed.
Do
Yeah,
you use
each
the break? Sorry, do you use any of the breakout rooms or anything of that nature, or it's the main room, five
Yeah, the
rounds?
main yeah, the main room is kind of like where it happens, and sometimes if there's more time and people are willing to stick around past that 1 hour mark, then we open breakout rooms. But typically, it's so fast paced that and there's like a lot to cover, and it is like timed pretty like closely. So the icebreaker is 10 seconds. Round two is about 20-25 seconds. Round three is 10-15 seconds again. So again, it's like we're training people to be super specific about what they want, so they're not meandering and kind of wasting other people's time or their time. Because if you meander, you make it super hard for someone else to know what you do and thus help you at the end of the day. So
So
with yeah,
that's awesome. And one question I actually forgot to ask, but I think it's apropos here. How is the structure? Do you run the meeting yourself? What's the leadership team? Do you ask
yeah,
members to participate in those kind of leadership roles? Like, what is that like?
yes, yes, and yes.
All right.
So we do have a leadership team in place. Both of our chapters have presidents. Both of our chapters have growth directors as well as vice presidents. We also have a membership director as well. Me as the founder, yes, I'm present. I'll typically start the meeting and then hand over the baton to the president, who will then drive the entire meeting.
Cool. And and then are there other positions? Do members have any other? Are there any other roles or positions and titles that members have, or not necessarily?
Yeah, I mean, as of now, it's membership director, vice president, growth director,
Okay.
president, and we might have a timer as well.
Okay, so that's about 4 or 5 different roles. That's good. It's something we've considered in a video socials club. We're not really a networking group, right? We're a video blogging club, but we do have member co-hosts who take on different roles. Sometimes my business partner fulfills that, and we're starting to have more sharing socials that member co-hosts are running. So it's kind of in the back of my mind. And of course, other networking groups have different roles for their voluntary members to take on leadership roles and responsibilities. So it kind of in the back of our mind, should we learn from networking groups like yours in terms of our model? So that's why I asked that. Another
Yeah,
characteristic
like
I find. Go on.
Vikram, just
Yeah,
to add to what you said, absolutely you want to give members the opportunity for leadership because on the one hand, it elevates their profile in the group,
yeah, sure.
which is a good thing for them. It also is an example for other members in the group to see that there is an opportunity for advancement when
Yeah,
it comes to, if they so choose. So that's like on the one hand. But then on the practical logistical end of it, it basically means that it's not all on your head,
sure.
and then it becomes less person dependent. And when the, let's say, operational, let's say, responsibilities are divided among several people, it then runs a little bit more smoothly, and it's not just a one man show where everything is on your head, and then you'll have slips and falls and breaks, and you don't want that. So
Yeah.
just to kind of
Sometimes,
for
yeah,
your own sanity and
sometimes
peace of mind.
literally that can affect a meeting, if not figuratively, of if you slip and fall. So that's great.
Exactly.
Yeah, no, we totally recognize that. So thank you for bringing that insight in. Another characteristic I often see in terms of communities and how groups turn into really that feeling of culture and community is that very often they have these things that they repeat often, like an agenda, like the rounds. And sometimes they have sayings and other internal jargon, if not even inside jokes, let alone symbols and meanings. Are there any things like that that you guys all tend to say often or do together often, or have phrases that you repeat either as rituals or repeatables? Can you give us any examples like that that
Yeah,
have
I would say.
automatically or that you've actually contrived in a good way?
Yeah, so I would say the answer is no. We
Okay.
don't have any kind of things that we repeat or chant or whatever, because I know that other meetings other meetings will repeat the member's slogan or whatever. So like again, we kind of understand that other meeting formats have certain elements that make sense and other elements that don't. And we've kind of like gleaned taken elements that do make sense and thrown away the ones that we feel don't make sense.
Okay.
Keeping in mind that, we're like super
Well,
focused
you have the
on,
tagline. You have the igniting something or other, which is a
well,
nice
well,
play on the
that's
dynamite.
more of our value proposition, but
Okay.
our tagline is networking done differently.
Okay.
So again, we're not saying that we're the best. You come, check us out. If you like us, okay, thanks. If you don't like us, well,
Okay. Okay.
there are so many other places to choose from, and that's fine. So we're like a very low key, chill kind of group. Like somebody said, we're not the BNI pressure cooker. That's
Got
what
it.
one guest said once, and they were like, "Wow, this is like very chill. Members aren't forced or shamed
But fast
to like
paced.
bring guests or whatever, so it's like
Chill but
very,
fast paced. It sounds like.
I mean, it's chill in the sense that it's very casual, very easygoing, very warm and friendly and nurturing and all that fluffy nice stuff, but with a very clear business objective of flooding people with high quality warm introductions and referrals, which is what happens at every single meeting. So
So
whether
how do
you're
you
a member.
so how do you guys grow? How do guests come to the meetings? Is there like an invitation structure and a culture, and
Yeah,
how does
yeah.
that happen?
Yeah, so basically, like none of our events are published like publicly.
Yeah,
They're all password protected. So if you go to our Eventbrite page, you'll need to put in the password to be able to register for an event. This helps us control who can see it and who can't see it. So we'll
sure.
never, first of all, post a LinkedIn post by putting the Eventbrite link there. We wouldn't. It's only like existing members and guests can invite other guests to come check us out, but we'll never like broadcast it out
Sure.
there
Okay.
because we want to control who comes in, and we are very very clear as to not allowing takers into the room. Like takers aren't welcome. I'll kind of
How do
say that up
you
front.
how do you filter that other than a member vouching for a guest? Is there any
Yeah,
other filter?
yeah. Like for example, when you meet somebody on LinkedIn and the first thing that they say is a copy paster of an email in the chat, that's a good example that they're a taker because clearly they don't understand business etiquette or virtual etiquette. So that's like one example right there. That's like very clear, very obvious, pretty simple. Other ways are if you're having a one-on-one conversation with them and they basically just kind of tell you all about them. They don't ask you any questions about what do you do, what can I do for you, things like that.
Right.
That's also another example that they're probably a taker. And these are ways to kind of discern if a person is more of a taker or less of a taker. Now, that being said, can a taker be converted to be a giver? Sure, absolutely. Everyone is capable of change and transformation. But the point is that since we're trying to uh, maintain the integrity and culture of the group, we're very careful as to who we let in, because that's going to have like an impact on other people.
Is there a vetting process? So a guest comes because of a member. What's that? Is there like an application process? Is there a vetting process, or do you find
Yeah.
that not
So
necessary?
Yeah, so basically, the membership process is very simple. We have a membership form, you fill it in, there's a reference check. We call your references to see if you are what you say that you are. The main thing that we check for is integrity. We only want people that have high integrity. What do I mean by integrity? I mean honesty. If you say you're going to do something, do you do it? Or do you do it, or do you not do it, or find some way not to do it? So that kind of tells us whether you're a person of high integrity or not. And that is the number one feature or quality that we look for. We don't necessarily care if you have 2,000 connections or 20,000 connections on LinkedIn or Instagram. I mean, yes, it's good that you have a big network, but that's not the main thing. The main thing is, do you have a generous spirit? Are you a kind, warm person that genuinely wants to be of service to someone else while still obviously being open and available to help others, because that's what your business is. So that's fine.
So do
Uh,
you actually ask not only those Instagram followers, do you ask any of those kind of metrics questions on the application form?
We no, we don't ask people
Okay.
how many connections they have. We do ask people, for references, customers
Sure.
that have used them in the last 12 months, and then we actually call up those people and have a conversation with them. Now, if there are members that vouch very strongly for certain people,
Yeah.
saying that I've known this person for like 10 plus years, they're like amazing. We will
Sure.
sometimes, on that basis, waive the reference check because the member has like vouched very passionately and strongly for that incoming member. But
Okay.
for regular people, yeah, that's the standard process. And then they pay the membership fee. We have a pay as you go monthly option as well as an annual option. This way, the annual option gives you a saving. The monthly option gives you flexibility. So depending on what you care more about, you can then choose that.
One thing that we tend to do at Video Socials, is thank members, especially when they're in the room with their guests. But guests sometimes go to other clubs where the member isn't there, and so we still nonetheless acknowledge the member in absence. Is there, in terms of invitation culture, is there a way that you thank members, and is there a way that you greet and welcome new members?
Yeah, so like typically we have like an initiation process where the members take certain oaths about
Okay.
like
Is there
making a
something there
promise.
you repeat? Okay, so what is the oath? Do you know it
Uh,
by heart?
so that again, it's something about like will you do what you say that you will do, and
Okay.
then the member affirms I will. And again, that's something that we tried, and then we're constantly iterating. So it's
Okay.
something that we're constantly asking our members to see like what do they think about it. And some people
What
feel
is the
that
latest consensus? Do they like taking the blood oath of dynamite?
yeah they so the oath of dynamite was something that we started out in I think it was 2019
Okay.
is when we started it for about 6 months,
Yeah.
and then in person, the group, the members then liked it, but
Okay.
when we went virtual, the
Yeah.
new members that came in kind of didn't like it too much, so we're in the process of probably kind of sunsetting that.
Okay. What
Yeah.
did what? So the newer members didn't like it. What did the new? What was the pushback? What were they say? It felt too
And they
cultish.
were, yeah, they were saying like, it's honestly seems very kind of like archaic,
Okay.
and it's something that you is not needed. People
Okay.
kind of like the group because it's chill and warm and friendly,
Right.
approachable. Doing that kind of takes away from that, and that was the
Okay.
insight. and that's the reason why we're kind of like sunsetted there.
Sunsetting. Is there
Yeah.
any other do you have any other plans of how you're going to welcome a newer member and thanking uh, an
Yeah.
existing member?
Yeah. So like I said, we are constantly
Yeah,
innovating
sure.
and trying
Yeah,
new
yeah, yeah.
things.
The next time
So
you come on, I'll ask you how it went. But well, what are you guys
So
thinking?
like yeah, so for example, we have a WhatsApp channel
Yeah,
for both the chapters. Each chapter has its own WhatsApp channel. Each chapter has its own LinkedIn posting party channel. So what we do is we like have people post on LinkedIn and share that link
sure.
in that group chat,
Yeah,
and then everyone goes and converges on that post by
sure.
liking, commenting,
Good.
sharing, all of that. So that happens, and that's open to members only. The WhatsApp channel is to facilitate members to connect and interact with each other outside of the meetings. And Yeah, so that's kind of like how members interact with each other. Uh, when a member is added to the WhatsApp channel, there's a small introduction. Hey guys, it gives me great pleasure to introduce so and so who's just joined us as our CPA or just joined us as our financial advisor or whatever. So there's that announcement that happens on WhatsApp as well as in the meeting.
Are you guys one seat exclusive or not
Yes.
necessarily? Yeah. And so as we wrap up, this was great. This is good insight in terms of how you structure the groups and the agenda and kind of the philosophy. I want to wrap things up and ask you a couple of final questions. What's that timetable like? So is it that you guys meet weekly, like Tuesdays, 10 a.m. Eastern?
Yeah,
Or
so yeah, that's a great question, Vikram. So earlier we used to meet every other week.
okay,
So it was Tuesdays at 10 a.m., not every week, but every other week. But then
yeah,
when we grew to the extent of having, now we have close to about 20 or 25 members in the East Coast chapter. That's our older chapter. We then met we then changed from a 2 week model to every week. But what happens is that on that middle week, we typically have either a spotlight speaker on that in that meeting or a mastermind. So the mastermind group, basically, the way it works is the member speaks about his or her business for about 5 to 7 minutes, and then throws a challenge question or questions to the group, which everyone comes together to problem solve. So that's that one moment where they're able to leverage the entire brain power of the entire group, members and guests, to problem solve. And most of these questions usually are pretty common
sure,
for other members as well. So if the question is, hey, how do I close more? Or how do I position myself? How do I get more clients? These are some very, very fundamental common questions that many people may have. So when people are ideating and brainstorming, they're technically a lot of times helping themselves as well,
sure.
because it's very likely that they have that same need. So that's kind of like how we're doing it with East Coast because it's the older chapter. West Coast is a slightly newer chapter. So West Coast meets every other week at 10 a.m. Pacific.
Yeah.
So that's how we're doing it. And the new chapter, we're going to be having a London chapter that we're in early talks about opening. That will also be that same model of every other week.
And it'll be 10 a.m. Greenwich time. Is that
Yeah,
their time?
GMT, I suppose. Yeah,
GMT. So that'd be pretty early for us, right? That'll be like
I
5
guess.
a.m. You so for people who do like waking up the crack of dawn, so you're starting to practice now to wake up for health and wealth reasons to support their 10 a.m. GMT. Good stuff. Any other things on the timeline horizon of in-person events? Anything else you want to mention coming up in terms of time and timing?
Well, so it's very curious that our San Francisco chapter, like our name is Dynamite Networking Group, and our president in San Francisco is also the business director of a new co-working space called Dynamico.
Okay.
The website is dynamico.space, I believe. And It's just curious that the names kind of like align almost to the
Sure.
extent that there was meant to be. So our in-person meetings in San Francisco will be held at that Dynamico as well as other, in-person events like that, whether it's a speaker series or game nights, which we're also experimenting with as well.
That's great. Last final question. So very similar to the very first one, talking about your experience with other groups and communities. Is there another community business group leader that you'd like to put the shine on Maybe you're a member of their group. Maybe you're not a member, but just nonetheless a fan of who that person is and the group that he or she leads. Is there someone or one or two people that come to mind as another business group leader that you could shine on?
I think the group that I would definitely shine the light on is Toastmasters.
Mm.
So Toastmasters is a
Is there
very
anyone at Toastmasters? I'm talking about a person that you know well. Is there
yeah,
someone who leads
yeah.
at
So
Toastmasters? Sure.
sure, I would throw the spotlight on Alyssa Ryu and Robert Dong. They're both the leaders at Columbia University Toastmasters,
Oh, cool.
which I'm a member of.
I could
Uh,
probably see it from my window. So
Yeah, and so as it turns out, Columbia University Toastmasters is also the largest, if not one of the largest, Toastmaster groups in the US.
my
Uh,
co-founder Mark Bullock was the president of the largest Toastmasters chapter in Maui, Hawaii, which is also one of the largest chapters in the U.S. So go on. So you were saying. So what
yeah,
makes?
so
Yeah.
yeah, so if I were to like throw the spotlight, I would throw the spotlight on Alyssa and Robert. They've kind of been in that group for years, almost from the beginning, early stages when it was just a few people, and now it's grown to like 100 plus members. And I'd like to throw the spotlight on there because Toastmasters is very community oriented. It's a
Yes.
safe space. As they say, it's a safe space to fail.
Sure.
It has that very friendly, warm, nurturing environment that they're all about helping people with their public speaking and developing leadership skills. And the way that they give feedback is they use that sandwich approach, where
Yep.
you start with something that's great about them, then give the feedback, which areas of improvement, and end with the fact that they did a great job and acknowledging them for the effort. So I love that sandwich approach, and that's something that I've incorporated when giving feedback to anyone, whether it's in life or work or to my significant other or anyone or to my team.
That's great. I'd love to meet them. Hopefully, offline you can connect them with
Absolutely,
us. I'd
we
love to
meet.
have them on our show.
Yeah,
There's
yeah.
as you brought it up that we have a lot. We pay a lot of respect and homage to Toastmasters at Video Socials. Sometimes we get compared, but we're a little bit different because obviously focused on video on social media. But that's an excellent highlight for that for Alyssa, and I'm forgetting Alyssa's partner's name.
Robert.
Robert,
Robert
Alyssa
Dong.
and Robert
Yeah.
at Columbia Toastmasters. Rajiv, this was phenomenal. Thank you so much for bringing us inside the Dynamite Networking Group. I'm looking forward to people going to the website dynamitenetworking.com
Yeah.
and kind of seeing the timetable and even being a guest where they will not be treated any differently, other than the WhatsApp channel. They will not be treated any differently from another member. Again, this is another episode of People Love Clapping, how business groups and communities grow. Again, my name is Vic. I'm the co-founder of Video Socials, which is a peer-to-peer business video blogging community, coupled with Brander, our video posting automation app. I look forward to everyone getting to know Rajiv and getting to know Dynamite and getting to know the other episodes of People Love Clapping. Until next time, see you later.